I think if every photographer would be forced to pick one focal length for the rest of our days, we would just know. It's the lens that just feels right. It complements the way we see things, and the world just feels more natural through it, as if we've been seeing through that focal length all along. In today's video, I'm going to share the 3 most common focal lengths and break down some of the advantages and disadvantages of each. And maybe these thoughts will affirm what you already know and feel, or they may even challenge you to try something new. But before we get into all of that, I hope you're watching this video from a place of peace in your life. If this is your first time here, my name is Dave and I'm a photographer and filmmaker from the Bay Area of California. Now, I hope to educate and empower you with information on this channel, so be sure to subscribe if that resonates with you. And if you reach out or comment, I will always try to respond because community comes first. So follow along and join the community. So let's start off with the widest of the common focal lengths, 28mm. Though for some brands, it's 24mm. Now they're not too much different, so while I'm talking directly about 28, much of what I'm going to say will also apply to 24. The 28mm focal length is a favorite for many photographers, striking a balance between wide angle and normal perspectives. But like any focal length, it has its pros and cons. So here's my personal breakdown of the pros and cons of 28. The 28 is often considered a sweet spot in terms of versatility. It's wide enough to capture landscapes and architecture or portraits or street photography, but it's also narrow enough to be more intimate and get more focused when you want it to be. The 28 also provides like a broad perspective without distorting your subjects too much. It really makes it ideal for environmental portraits and capturing like dynamic and expansive scenes. And compared to wider focal lengths, the 28 tends to be much more compact and lightweight, making it easier to carry around for a long shoot, especially if you're out exploring a city or landscapes. Also at 28, many lenses are known to be very sharp, even at wide apertures, which means that on like a higher resolution camera, you can easily shoot at 28 and crop in without losing too much detail. And that gives you a lot of options in post if you're just carrying one lens. And all of this is why 28 is a very popular focal length for everyday carry, because it allows you to blend in with your surroundings while still getting enough detail to tell a story. So let's talk about some of the cons of 28. Right off the bat, with 28, you are really limited in your ability to isolate your subjects, especially ones that are far away, and draw attention to your subject in a busy environment. For anything that requires tighter framing, you are gonna need a longer focal length. Also, at these wider apertures like 28 and 24, unless you're spending some serious money to get a quality lens, those like cheaper, more inexpensive lenses are typically gonna distort the corners or give you a lot of vignetting, especially when you're wide open. So to get like a really good 28 that doesn't do all that, you may have to drop a little more cash than you would on other focal lengths. Another con is that if you're like a wide open landscape photographer and that is your thing, 28 can sometimes feel a bit tight. For instance, if you're shooting big mountains that are really close up to you, 28 probably is not going to be enough to get you there. 2 examples of this are Lake Moraine in Banff and Hidden Lake in Glacier. Now at Moraine, I shot much wider than 28 to be able to get the entire scene, and at Hidden Lake, I had to use 28 to create a stitch panorama because the 28 simply was not wide enough to get that entire scene. And while 28 allows you to get more in focus at any given aperture compared to longer focal lengths, you might struggle to get good background separation, which kind of makes it less than ideal for shooting portraits where you want good subject isolation. Now, of course, this is overcome as you open the lens up, but only to some degree. So in the end, 28mm is a great focal length for those that want something that can handle a wide range of scenarios without feeling too limited or specialized. All right, next up is 35mm. This is my focal length. This is how I see the world. It is my most used lens. And to me, 35 is wide enough to see everything that matters in most cases and tight enough to feel natural. And I think it works in basically every scenario, again, for me. Now, some of the pros of the 35. I think 35 is really artistic. Now, it's unnatural in that we don't see things like 35. I think we see things a little more close to like 50. Therefore, the images that come out of the 35 are a bit unnatural because they're just a little further away than what the human eye sees. And I think that gives you the ability to be a little more artistic. I think it's a great balance of context and attention to subject, and that makes for great storytelling with any type of photography. So whether you're shooting landscapes or portraits, the 35 can handle a wide variety of subjects. I think it's also a great focal length for environmental and outdoor portraits when you want to use the surroundings to really bring attention to your subjects and put them in this like epic and awesome place. And like 28, the 35 is typically small and easy to carry, making it great for travel or street photography where you want to move quickly and keep your gear just kind of minimal and unobtrusive. And one final pro is that many 35 lenses, because they go down below f2 without breaking the bank, 35 can be a great focal length for low light conditions, which is why I typically have a 35 on all day, from blue hour before sunrise into the night if necessary. All right, let's talk about some of the cons of the 35mm focal length. The 35 is still not gonna give you the same level of subject isolation as longer focal lengths will. 35 is kind of the top of the wide lenses. And for those that want more separation or isolation, a 35 may feel a little limiting. The 35 can also be pretty tight in wide spaces. If you're like confined when you're shooting like a large group of people, or maybe you're doing real estate or something interior, 35 may not offer a wide enough angle that you're gonna need. And it can be tricky to fit everything into the frame without stepping back, especially when you're in closed quarters. Another thing is that when you use this lens, you're probably gonna be someone that moves around a lot to change up your composition. And that's not a con for everyone, but if you're somebody with limited mobility, it could be challenging if this was your only lens and you're trying to tell a story with a lot of different compositions. Like a few minutes ago, I mentioned Lake Moraine in Banff. Now that is a spot that if you're going to shoot the sunrise from across the lake, you need a very wide lens. But this is a case where in a very quick and limited time, like sunrise, you're not gonna be able to really move around just because of how that side of the lake is. And so if you want to tell a diverse story with a lot of different compositions, you're gonna need different focal lengths to do that. A single lens like a 35 is gonna give you a one and done perspective. So overall, to me, the 35 is a perfect do-it-all focal length, especially if you enjoy capturing the world in a way that feels immersive and true to life while being artistic. And before we get into the final focal length of the common three, let me give you two quick updates. First, there is this awesome and supportive community growing on the Very Good Discord channel. It's linked right below, completely free, very engaging, and I hope it's gonna be a source of inspiration for you. So be sure to check that out at the link below. Second, I am super excited to announce that this fall I will be hosting a workshop in Grand Teton National Park. This will be a workshop focused on building a body of work and storytelling, and we'll do it in one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. So reserve your spot today by visiting that link in the description below and hit me up if you have any questions about the workshop. All right, let's talk about our final focal length and the three common focal lengths, and that is 50mm. The 50 is the most classic and iconic focal length. It's also typically one of the most affordable focal lengths you can get. It doesn't matter what brand you shoot, there is a nifty 50 out there for you. 50 has a great balance between versatility and simplicity. So here's a look at the pros and cons of this classic focal length. I think the very first pro is that 50 is by far the most natural perspective. The 50mm lens provides a field of view that is what is closest to how the human eye perceives things. It's super natural and therefore it's very intuitive for many types of photography. It feels like what you see, which is why it's such a great lens for like portraits, street photography, or anything that really represents the human experience. And if you love the human experience, then you'll love 50. But if you you are an elder millennial like me and you find yourself ensnared in the gnawing existential crisis of a world teetering on the precipice of irrelevance, where each passing day feels like an unending odyssey through a dystopian labyrinth of fleeting trends, disintegrating social structures, and increasingly absurd geopolitical theater, all the while the once gleaming promise of a future has been reduced to like this one megapixel mirage of uncertainty, arming yourself with this internal catalog of inspirational quotes and philosophical musings and irreverent memes just to recite to yourself to get through the day, attempting to be an atlas of emotional resilience for your children and your friends, and you've got a well-stocked medicine cabinet for navigating this uncharted and ever more bewildering landscape that seeks to take everything from us while crushing every dream we were told was possible. Well, then if that's you, you're probably gonna prefer using something like a 35. Now, the 50mm can be typically small and lightweight, making it an excellent choice for photographers on the go. Whether you are traveling and you're shooting street scenes or just wanting to carry minimal amounts of gear, rarely will a 50mm weigh you down. And even more so over a 35, many 50mm are gonna give you very wide apertures at very inexpensive cost. And at 50, 1.4, 1.8 are gonna give you excellent separation and low light performance. I mean, at a 50 wide open, you're gonna get a very pleasing look on just about any 50 that you use. And I feel like at 50, you really start to define a lens's character. Now, of course, character can be found across any focal length, but the diversity of character across 50mm is really something. There are literally lenses out there for everyone. Whether you like vintage or modern, you will find what you are looking for in a 50mm. And the 50mm is often considered like the front end of go-to lenses for portrait photography because of its ability to produce flattering, lifelike results, whether you're close or you're far away from your subjects. So let's talk about some of the cons of the 50mm. So while 50 is really great for many applications, it can start to feel too tight in certain situations. 50 is only really my go-to if I'm in a massive landscape. Like if I'm in Yellowstone National Park, then 50 is on my camera as my wide lens. But nearly everywhere else that I go, 50 feels just a little too tight. And I did mention that 50s are typically small and compact, and that's true for the most part. But when you start getting down to like 1.2 or these lower apertures, 50s can really bulk up. I mean, have you seen a Noctilux? It is a huge lens. So once you hit the 50mm lens on any brand, size can really start to become a thing and be very diverse, from really small to pretty big. And of course, some of the cons from 35 carry to the 50 as well, like shooting in tight spaces or limited reach if you want a tight shot. I mean, there's things that carry over across all three, but the 50 is incredibly versatile. It's highly loved focal length for its balance of quality, size, and price. It can be so ideal for everyday use, for portraits, for low light, but it can start to feel limiting when you need a wide perspective. And if you're looking for that one lens that does it all, not too wide, not too telephoto, the 50 might be a strong contender for that. But if you need something that does, just a little more and you have a high resolution camera, 28 and 35 may be better. So when someone asks me, what is the lens? Like, what is the best focal length? And honestly, it's the one that tells your story best. Now, if you're someone like me that loves diversity when shooting, then build a kit of common focal lengths and even find maybe some more specialty focal lengths like 21 or 75 or 90 or even 135. But whatever you do, just do what works for you. You don't need someone to tell you what will and won't work for your own personal vision, even though that's basically what I've done in today's video. But I hope you did find it helpful or even affirming. And if you did, be sure to drop a comment below and let me know your favorite focal length and why. Is it because you love the width of the 28 or the separation of the 50? Or did the global existential dread lead you, like me, to 35? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.